YouTubers are getting their channels hacked, password managers are leaking user data, phishing emails often outnumber legitimate emails in your inbox. There are some big changes happening within online security, and here's what you need to know. For years, most of us have relied on security strategies that have served us well in the past. Strong passwords, some form of two-factor authentication, don't click on unknown links, boom, you're good. Unfortunately, as the world continues to evolve, we're starting to see a bunch of changes, and I believe there's even more coming down the line, that mean that these simple strategies just are no longer enough. It's not that we need to move away from these tried and true strategies, but we need to modify the way that we secure our accounts, protect ourselves from phishing attacks, and handle our publicly available data. In this video, I'm gonna walk through 4 very specific strategies that I think most of us would say is the foundation of our online security, and then explain the slight change that is going to turn these simply good strategies into threat-adjusted protection measures that will hopefully future-proof you against the latest threats that we're all facing on a day-to-day basis. Now, before we get started, let me share with you the biggest mistake that I see people make when it comes to their online security. It's the very reason that this video even exists. I come across far too many people who tell me I'm secure because I use fill in the blank strategy. Now, when anybody says that to me, alarm bells start going off in my head. Sometimes that blank is as simple as a really long passphrase, and I have other people who explain to me their complex virtual machine setup using only Linux operating systems. It doesn't matter. They're both wrong. You want to know the truth?
I want the truth!
The truth is that nothing in the world of security is foolproof. Nothing. Now, you can react to this in one of 2 ways. First, you can throw up your hands and say, it's not worth the trouble, we're all screwed anyway, so what's the point? And honestly, that's what most people do, whether they say that out loud or not. Or you can recognize where things are headed and you can adjust along the way. That's why All Things Secured exists in the first place. I'm constantly learning and adjusting my own security and sharing what I learn with you. So you have strong passwords. That's great. I hope you're using a password manager to create and store them. The next step here is to start masking as much additional data as you can within your online accounts. The best story that comes to mind here for me is Twitter. Let's say you have an account on their platform with the strongest possible password. It would have taken centuries for somebody to crack that. Just as you take a moment to pat yourself on the back, you read news that hackers are now selling data stolen from 400 million Twitter users, which included their email address and the phone number that they associated with their Twitter account. In this case, it didn't matter how strong your password was. You were at the mercy of the security measures put in place by the company itself. And these kind of corporate hacks are happening all the time. And I predict that this trend will continue for a while. So again, don't just create strong passwords and be content with that. Start thinking about how you can mask or hide other pieces of personal data. You can mask your email address that you use to sign up for online accounts with unique aliases. Don't give away your actual phone number. Use a burner number. And for goodness sakes, stop giving out your home address. It's one of the hardest pieces of personal data to change, and start using a virtual address instead. I've got videos explaining how to do all of this in the description below. It's really not as hard as you might think. Strong passwords combined with masked data makes for much better security. Okay, I'm about to say something and I need you to promise that you're not going to overreact, okay? This is a difficult truth that a lot of people are having to learn the hard way, and here it is. Two-factor authentication is hackable. Just this past year, major YouTube channels from smart creators like Jim Browning or even IT professionals like David Bombal have been hacked despite being protected by 2FA. Now, how this happened is a topic that I want to save for another video. The point here is, again, no security measure is ever 100% safe. So what's the adjustment we need to make here? First, if you're serious about security, please invest in physical security keys as opposed to SMS text verification or even authenticator apps. It doesn't solve all of the problems here, but it is a very, very good start. The biggest shift you need to consider here is something I'm going to call sandboxing. A sandbox could mean maintaining an entirely separate email account for banking, financial, or sensitive emails. It could mean logging into certain accounts only on one device. Let's say you've got a specific computer in your home that is the only one you use for banking and not your mobile device or anything else. I mean, I know some people who go as far as creating a virtual machine environment for certain activities that they do. And at this point, Honestly, that's a little bit out of my league, but the idea here is to think through how and maybe even when you might want to create a metaphorical walled garden for some of your accounts. This doesn't always apply to everybody, but if you're a high-value target, or especially if you're into crypto, this is something that I suggest you start working on now. My hope is that you either don't have unnecessary social media accounts, or if you do, that you've made all of them, even the necessary ones, private. We can be our own worst enemy when it comes to sharing too much personal information. Minimizing what you share publicly is a good start, but sadly, we're not the only ones who leak our information. Our government does it all the time with public records. Companies routinely sell your data, and it is scary easy to rent email lists that you've been placed on because of some targeted attribute like your political views or your spending habits or something like that. The next step here is to erase as much data online as you have the control to do so. Google your name and address and see what comes up. Do it in a private browser. See if there are any old social accounts that come up that you forgot about. What you're probably going to find is that there are a number of data brokers that are quietly selling or licensing access to your phone number, your home address, court records, family relationships, and a lot more. You can go through the process to opt out of having your data publicly available, which is possible, but I warn you, it is a little time consuming. Or you can use a service like Delete Me to do it for you. You've probably heard me talk about Delete Me before. It's a service that I've used for more than a year now, and I've done a couple of reviews on this channel. The thing that I love is that they continually monitor all of these data brokers for any of my personal information. And every month they're finding new brokers and new pieces of information that pop up, and they're, again, making opt-out requests on my behalf. It's a pretty set it and forget it solution, which I appreciate. But if I do ever find my data somewhere else on the internet, I just send it to them and they work to take care of it. I don't want people to know the value of the property that I own or which of my family members that they can harass if they don't like something that I say here on this channel. And that's why I use and recommend Delete Me. And if it's something that you want to try, visit their website and use the code ATS to get 20% off their services. Don't click links. Don't open email attachments from unknown senders. Again, these are helpful, fundamental pillars of good online security. But as things change, the way you win is to recognize that security is not a solitary effort. There is a direct network effect associated with risk that extends to your family, friends, and even your coworkers. Last week, I received an email from my mom who, thankfully, was asking me whether or not a message she had received was a scam. Now, to my experienced eyes, it was absolutely, clearly, unmistakably a scam. But in her words, it makes sense in some ways. My mom is a smart woman. So is my wife, my dad, my sister, even the people that I hire in my company. But they all share one thing in common. Each of them represents a link in my security chain, and the weakest link is still a threat, regardless of how strong I make my own. For the longest time, security has been an individual undertaking, but individuals and companies, both big and small, are realizing more and more that your spouse or that the virtual assistant that you gave access to your account have made them vulnerable. One easy solution is to train your network through force of habit. Be predictable in your method of communication so that when something weird happens, let's say that they get a message from you on a different platform than you're used to using, or it's a request that you would never make over email, that they naturally become suspicious. I've talked about the one security habit you must teach your family, and I still think that it's worth watching that and sharing it with your loved ones. Now, I'm no idiot. I'm not going to tell you how to nag your spouse to use a password manager or 2FA. Just know that as long as they don't, it's an open door for future problems. For employees and contractors, that's a completely different story. You can and should mandate certain security measures. So what are the key takeaways? Create strong passwords, but then start masking your data. Definitely use 2FA, particularly 2FA keys, but then determine when and where you need to sandbox for greater security. Make all your social accounts private, but then go through and scrub your publicly available data. Don't click on links and emails or attachments, but then find ways to do the same for your family. What else would you add to this list? I know there's more here, and I'd love to learn from you as well. Leave a comment with your ideas and then watch this video next about that one security habit I referenced earlier. It's a good one, I promise, so click here.